You're listening to From Stillness, an audiobook for a mind in need of quiet. Something happened to me recently that completely shifted the way I think about change and identity. We often believe that once we decide who we want to be, healthy, successful, disciplined, our actions will naturally fall into place. But the reality is far less romantic. It's not identity that drives action. It's action that shapes identity. Let's say someone wants to get healthy. They throw themselves into it, buy the gear, post about it, maybe even create a vision board. But 3 weeks later, they're back to skipping workouts and reaching for takeaway. Why? Because they were trying to change who they are before changing what they do. And identity doesn't work that way. Your brain isn't persuaded by big declarations. It's like a quiet detective, watching everything you do and drawing conclusions. Each time you take an action, you're casting a small vote for the kind of person you are. One action doesn't do much. 2 catches attention. By the 3rd or 4th time, your brain starts thinking, maybe this is just who we are now. This is how real, lasting change happens. Not through massive willpower or loud commitments, but through small, consistent actions that quietly reshape your self-image. You don't become a reader by saying you are one. You become a reader by reading 1 page a day. Identity isn't built through intention. It's built through repetition. And the shift begins the moment you act. Here's something that doesn't get said enough. Your identity isn't fixed. It's not something you're born with or that you suddenly decide into being. It's something you build day by day through your actions. More specifically, through small repeated behaviors that quietly tell your brain, this is who I am now. Your brain is always observing. It doesn't care what you say you want to be. It cares what you do. It watches patterns and makes deductions. You can tell yourself you're a runner, a reader, or a focused person all day long. But until your actions reflect that, your brain won't believe it. In fact, it can't. It needs proof. This is where the concept of the identity loop comes in. Every time you take a small action, you're not just ticking a task off a list, you're sending a signal. 1 action, a fluke. 2, a potential pattern. 3, your brain starts to think, hang on, maybe this is part of who we are. And once your brain begins to shift how it sees you, everything changes. Suddenly, those behaviors that used to require willpower now feel natural. You're no longer forcing yourself to behave a certain way. You're simply acting in alignment with who you believe you are. The best part? This doesn't require huge effort. It starts with something almost laughably small. If you want to be someone who reads, don't vow to finish a book a week. Just read 1 page a day. That's it. What matters most is consistency. Over time, those daily repetitions strengthen your self-image, and your self-image then fuels even more consistent action. That's the loop. The beauty of this process is its simplicity. You don't need permission. You don't need dramatic change. You just need to cast enough small votes for the person you want to become and let the identity follow. You are what you repeat, and every repetition is a vote for your future self. Here's where most people go wrong when trying to change. They aim far too big, far too fast. It's not because they're lazy or unmotivated. In fact, it's often the opposite. The problem is the ego. It craves dramatic transformation. It wants to say, from today, I'm a completely new person. But your brain doesn't work like that. It doesn't respond to bold declarations. It responds to repetition. Your ego wants to run 10K on day 1. Your brain just wants to lace up the trainers. And in this battle between ambition and consistency, the brain always wins. Here's why starting small matters. When you set the bar low, absurdly low even, you remove resistance. There's no internal fight, no need to hype yourself up. If your new habit is do 1 press-up or read 1 paragraph, there's no excuse not to follow through. And every time you do, you're quietly reinforcing a new identity. It's not about staying small forever, it's about making the habit stick. Once the action feels natural, your brain begins to accept it as part of your normal behavior. That's when it gets easier to build on. But skip that foundation, and the whole thing collapses. There's a real humility required here. It's hard to let go of the image of sudden, overnight change. But lasting transformation doesn't come from heroic efforts. It comes from small, almost invisible wins, done consistently. So when you set out to change something in your life, don't ask, what's the biggest version of this I can handle? Ask instead, what's the version I can do even on my worst day? Because in the end, your identity isn't shaped by grand gestures. It's shaped by what you do when no one's watching, especially when it's small. One of the most exciting things about the human brain is that it's not fixed. It changes every day based on what you do. This concept is known as neuroplasticity, and once you understand it, you realize just how much power you actually have to reshape your life. Imagine your brain as a garden. Every thought you think, every action you take, is like walking a path through it. The more you repeat something, the clearer and more defined that path becomes. It gets easier to travel. Soon, it's the default route your brain takes without question, just like the way your feet know the route to the kitchen in the morning before your eyes are even fully open. But here's the key part. Your brain doesn't judge whether that path leads to something helpful or harmful. It doesn't ask if the habit is good or bad. It simply strengthens the trails you use most often. If you're regularly thinking self-critical thoughts or checking your phone first thing in the morning, your brain will happily pave that route in stone. This is exactly why small, repeated actions are so powerful. Each one is like carving out a new path in your mental garden. At first, it's unfamiliar, even awkward. But keep going, and the path becomes clearer. The brain starts to favor it. Eventually, it becomes your new automatic behavior. And here's the other side of it. The paths you stop walking begin to fade. Not overnight, but gradually. This is how you let go of old habits. Not by fighting them directly, but by building better ones. Trying to stop a bad habit usually makes your brain focus on it even more, like saying, "Don't think of a pink elephant." You can't help it. Instead, shift your focus entirely to the new path you want to create. This is the real magic of habit change. You're not just trying to be better. You're literally rewiring your brain. With each small, consistent step, you're becoming the person you want to be, from the inside out. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to change is putting all their energy into battling their old habits. They focus on what they want to stop doing, smoking, procrastinating, checking their phone too much, and end up reinforcing those very behaviors. The brain doesn't respond well to fighting. In fact, it often clings tighter to whatever you're trying to push away. Let's try something right now. Don't think about a pink elephant. Seriously, don't. What happened? Exactly. The more you try not to think about something, the more it shows up. That's how your brain works. It pays attention to whatever you're focusing on, whether it's framed positively or negatively. This is why trying to fight your bad habits often backfires. The better approach? Shift your focus. Instead of resisting the old, start building the new. For example, if you want to stop reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, don't just tell yourself to quit. That's a void your brain will want to fill. Instead, introduce a new routine. Stretch for 1 minute, drink a glass of water, take 3 deep breaths. Whatever small thing signals a fresh direction. Each time you do, you're creating a new path for your brain to follow. Over time, these new behaviors start to feel more natural and the old habits begin to fade, not because you fought them, but because you stopped feeding them. Just like a walking path becomes overgrown when it's no longer used, your brain begins to deprioritize the old patterns. Change doesn't come from waging war on your past. It comes from quietly building something better. One small, purposeful action at a time. Let's be honest, most of us blame ourselves when we struggle to stick to new habits. We think we lack willpower or discipline. But what if the real problem isn't you? It's your environment. Here's something few people realize. Your surroundings are constantly nudging your behavior. Without you even noticing, they shape what you do, when you do it, and how easy or difficult it is to follow through. The truth is, relying on motivation or self-control alone is a losing game, especially when your environment is working against you. Think about water for a second. It doesn't try to move uphill. It flows naturally along the path of least resistance. Your behavior works the same way. You gravitate towards whatever is easiest in your surroundings. So instead of forcing yourself to fight upstream every day, you can redesign your environment to make good habits effortless and bad habits inconvenient. Want to eat better? Don't just tell yourself to resist temptation. Change what's in your fridge. Remove the biscuits from your cupboard. Make fruit visible. Studies show people eat significantly more fruit when it's placed in plain sight. That's not about willpower, that's smart design. Want to work out more? Lay your gym clothes out the night before. Or better yet, sleep in them. It removes one more barrier between intention and action. Want to read more? Keep a book on your bedside table or coffee table, somewhere visible. You'll pick it up far more often just because it's there. This is what I call the friction principle. You reduce friction for good habits, make them easy, automatic, and smooth. And you increase friction for bad ones, make them harder to access. Want to cut down on screen time? Remove social media apps from your home screen. Log out after every session. Even adding 2 extra clicks can reduce your usage dramatically. Once you understand this, habit change becomes less about willpower and more about design. The key isn't trying harder, it's setting things up so that trying harder isn't even necessary. Your environment acts like a silent partner. It can either sabotage your progress or support it without you lifting a finger. So look around. What's your space encouraging you to do? What cues are triggering you? What could you move, remove, or add to guide yourself in a better direction? Because once your environment is working for you, not against you, habit change stops being a daily struggle and starts becoming second nature. If you've ever struggled to stick to a habit, it's probably not because you lack motivation. It's because you haven't yet mastered the friction principle. Friction, in the context of behavior, refers to how easy or difficult it is to take action. The more friction a habit has, the less likely you are to follow through. The less friction it has, the more effortlessly it slips into your daily routine. Here's the key. You don't need more willpower. You need to design your life so that good habits are downhill and bad ones feel like a chore. Take exercise, for example. Want to make morning workouts easier? Don't rely on motivation at 6 a.m. Lay your clothes out the night before. Better yet, place your trainers right by your bed. That way, when you wake up groggy, the first thing you see nudges you in the right direction, no thinking required. Trying to cut down on late-night scrolling? Don't just tell yourself to have more discipline. Delete the apps from your phone's home screen or log out after each use. Even adding a few extra taps can reduce your usage dramatically. That's friction doing its job. This principle works because our brains naturally conserve energy. We follow the path of least resistance. So, if you want to build a habit that lasts, remove every tiny obstacle that makes it harder to begin. And if there's a behavior you want to do less of, add even the smallest barriers between you and that action. When you design your environment to favor ease for the good and effort for the bad, you'll find yourself making better choices, not by force, but by default. That's the quiet power of friction. Use it, and habit change becomes less of a fight and more of a flow. We're constantly told to manage our time better, make to-do lists, plan our schedules, optimize every minute. But here's a truth that most people miss. Time isn't your most valuable resource. Energy is. Think about it. You've likely had entire afternoons wide open in your calendar, yet felt so mentally or physically drained that you couldn't do anything worthwhile with that time. On the other hand, you've probably also had moments, perhaps just 30 minutes, where you felt energized, focused, and achieved more than you usually would in hours. The difference wasn't time, it was energy. Your energy is your true fuel. It powers your ability to think clearly, make decisions, create, and connect with others. And unlike time, which keeps ticking no matter what you do, energy can be managed, protected, and even expanded. But to do that, you have to treat it like a finite currency, one that needs to be budgeted wisely. Your brain alone uses up to 20% of your body's energy. During periods of deep focus or learning, that number can rise dramatically. That's why you feel mentally exhausted after trying something new or navigating a difficult conversation. Your brain is literally burning through your reserves. The problem is, most of us don't factor this into how we plan our days. We try to cram in tasks back to back, run on caffeine and adrenaline, and then wonder why we can't sustain momentum. But if you shift your focus from managing time to managing energy, everything changes. Start by identifying your natural energy peaks. Are you most alert in the morning? Block that time for your most important work. Do you hit a slump mid-afternoon? Use that time for rest, admin, or light tasks. Don't treat all hours as equal because they're not. And just as important as energy expenditure is energy renewal. Rest isn't a luxury, it's a strategy. Recovery, whether through sleep, movement, quiet time, or connection, isn't wasted time. It's when your brain consolidates learning, resets focus, and builds resilience. You come back clearer, sharper, and ready to move forward again. So the next time you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or burnt out, don't ask, how do I fit more in? Ask, how do I support my energy so I can do what matters? Because when you learn to manage your energy, you stop fighting the day and start flowing through it. Once you understand that energy is your real currency, the next step is to spend it wisely by designing your day around your natural energy peaks. We all have internal rhythms, known as circadian cycles, that influence when we feel most alert and when we hit a dip. For many people, peak mental energy occurs mid-morning, with a natural lull in the early afternoon, and a second, smaller wave later in the day. The key to getting more done without burning out isn't cramming more in. It's aligning the right task with the right energy window. Start by noticing your personal patterns. When do you feel most focused, most creative, most drained? Map these patterns over a few days and use that insight to your advantage. High energy windows are prime time for deep work, anything that requires focus, creativity, or problem solving. Protect this time fiercely. Turn off notifications, block distractions, and give your most meaningful work the space it deserves. During lower energy periods, don't force productivity. Instead, use this time for admin tasks, meetings, casual reading, or short walks. You'll still be moving forward, but in a way that respects your natural rhythm. It's also important to schedule deliberate recovery. Breaks aren't slacking, they're strategic. Even a 10-minute pause can reset your attention, boost clarity, and make the next block of work far more effective. Think of your day like a wave. Your job isn't to push against the tide, it's to catch the right current at the right time. When you match your efforts to your energy, work feels smoother, results improve, and burnout becomes far less likely. Because real productivity isn't about squeezing more in, it's about flowing with your energy, not against it. If there's one takeaway from all of this, it's this: you're not stuck with the person you've always been. Change doesn't require grand gestures or flawless motivation. It just needs small, repeated action. Your identity isn't a fixed trait, it's a pattern. And patterns can be rewired. Every time you choose to act in alignment with the kind of person you want to become, even in the smallest way, you're casting a vote for that version of you. Read one page? That's a vote for becoming a reader. Go for a 5-minute walk? A vote for becoming someone who prioritizes health. These votes compound slowly but powerfully until they become your new normal. But it's not just about action, it's about environment and energy too. Set up your surroundings to make good habits easier. Respect your energy like you would your bank account. Spend it wisely. Recharge intentionally. And design your days to align with when you naturally perform best. The truth is, you don't need to overhaul your entire life to make meaningful change. You just need to start where you are, with what you can do, consistently. Let your identity follow your actions, let your actions follow your energy, and let your environment do half the work for you. The person you want to become isn't out of reach. You're already building that identity, one small decision at a time. And that, truly, is where real transformation begins.